Introduction of Character and Setting. New York City, spring. The sky outside was the color of steel, and the morning traffic groaned along 55th Street like a living thing. Gabriel Tran pushed through the glass doors of Trowbridge and Fields, one of Manhattan's most formidable law firms, and tried to ignore the heavy ache in his stomach that always arrived with the new day. Inside, rows of suits hustled past, clipped heels beating a rhythm over marble floors. The place oozed ambition. Near-frigid offices, polished glass everywhere, silent conference rooms where billion-dollar deals lived and died. Gabe, not quite 30 and freshly promoted, often wondered if he was ready for all this, if he'd ever stop feeling like a kid in borrowed clothes. Someone from HR gave him a tight smile as he passed. Gabe nodded back, unsure if he'd met her before. In places like this, everyone smiled like a habit, but nobody looked too long. There was an invisible clock ticking. Waste a minute, and you might as well hand in your badge. He reached his office, bigger than the closet he'd called home during his first years here, but still modest by Trowbridge standards. He ran a hand through his hair, sat down, and booted up his laptop. Before he could check his email, a gentle knock sounded. "Morning, Gabriel." The deep, measured voice belonged to Andrew Calhoun, the man who'd inspired half the junior associates to chase law in the first place. Senior partner, polished, silver-haired, and infamous for a mind as sharp as his suits. "Morning, Mr. Calhoun," Gabe replied, his throat going dry despite the dozen conversations they'd already shared over the past year. Calhoun stepped inside, closing the door with a soft click. "I saw your brief on the Gillespie case. Excellent work. I wanted to tell you personally." Gabe felt a small bloom of pride, or was it relief? He forced himself to meet Calhoun's gaze. "Thank you, sir. Means a lot coming from you." Calhoun smiled, a flash of perfect teeth. "You keep that up." He woke with a sense of purpose, almost excitement. Today, he would finally prove himself. The main boardroom at Trowbridge and Fields was a cathedral to power. Long, gleaming mahogany table, panoramic city views, and a chandelier that looked like it cost more than Gabe's childhood home. Gabe stood at the head of the table, shuffling his notes, trying to slow his heartbeat. The senior partner sat along the far side, faces impassive, eyes cool as ice. Others lined the room's edges. Junior associates, paralegals, even a couple of clients Gabe had only ever read about in press clippings. Andrew Calhoun offered him a brisk nod, signaling the start. Gabe cleared his throat and began. He laid out the case, an intricate tangle of contract disputes and threatened lawsuits, the sort of complexity that gave even seasoned lawyers pause. His voice shook for the first few sentences, but then, as he lost himself in the work, he steadied. Facts came quicker. The logic fell into place. Questions rained down from partners. Gabe answered each, sometimes bluntly, sometimes deferring, with a promise for details later. At every turn, he felt Calhoun watching with a mixture of pride and appraisal, as if taking the measure of a young athlete in his first big game. After what felt like hours, the meeting ended. People shuffled out, murmuring in low tones. As Gabe gathered his papers, a senior partner clapped him on the shoulder. "Not bad, Tran. Sharp work, especially for a first-timer." More encouraging still, a client, one of those impossibly confident midtown tycoons, paused to shake Gabe's hand. "Impressive, son. Hope I see you on my next case." Gabe could barely suppress his grin as he left the boardroom. Every step down the hall felt lighter. For the first time, he felt not just tolerated at Trowbridge and Fields, but wanted, respected. Later, as sunlight faded through the glass towers, Gabe stopped by a neighborhood bar for a drink, a quiet toast to his first real victory. He called his younger sister back in Houston, the one who'd always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. She cheered so loud he thought the whole city might hear. But the celebration was short-lived. When Gabe returned to the office the next morning, he noticed 2 junior associates, people he'd considered for attention. Calhoun stopped by Gabe's office in the late afternoons, always unannounced, always curious. "Got 5 minutes?" he'd ask, even though neither of them pretended it was a question. Their conversations, at first all business, gradually drifted to the personal. One evening, as twilight coated the skyline in lavender and gold, Calhoun lingered by the window while Gabe scribbled notes at his desk. "You ever play chess, Gabriel?" Calhoun asked, glancing at the city below. "My dad taught me as a kid," Gabe replied. "Mostly, I remember losing." Calhoun smiled faintly. "That's where you learn the real lessons, not in victory, but in handling defeat, and seeing traps before you step into them." The words hung in the air, both philosophy and warning. Gabe took them to heart. In the days that followed, Calhoun became both mentor and confessor. He shared stories, battles from old court cases, mistakes he'd made and survived, betrayals suffered and avenged. Gabe was hungry for insight and found himself confiding too. His immigrant family's struggles, his bone-deep need to prove himself, the price of ambition. One night, as they worked late preparing for a trial, Calhoun slid Gabe a glass of whiskey. "You're bright, Gabriel, but this place, this business," he gestured with the tumbler, "can break good men. Don't lose yourself chasing another man's measure of success." Gabe met Calhoun's gaze, intense, searching. "I won't, sir," he said, more certain than he felt. Their bond transformed Gabe's days. Tasks came with unspoken trust. Calhoun recommended Gabe for more visible roles, shielded him from office gossip, and gave subtle advice on how to survive backroom politics. Colleagues began to notice. Some congratulated him. Others grew distant, wary. Rumors stirred about favoritism, about how fast Gabe was climbing. He tried to ignore the whispers, focused instead on gratitude for an ally in his corner. Under Calhoun's quiet guidance, victory no longer seemed accidental. For the first time, Gabe felt grounded at Trowbridge. Around the conference table, their voices low, each clutching a paper cup of bad coffee like a lifeline. Andrew Calhoun entered 10 minutes late, uncharacteristic. He swept the room with his gaze, sharp, analytic, like a judge weighing evidence. His calm only made everyone more uneasy. "Sit down," he said. The click of his cufflinks cut through the room like a verdict. A tech consultant explained the basics. Unauthorized access, files copied, client email chains now floating God knows where. The firm had never faced a crisis this public, this dangerous. Partners barked panicked questions. Who? When? How could this happen? Gabe felt an icy knot in his gut. Weeks of delicate negotiations, sensitive casework. He'd touched much of it himself. "We'll contain this," Calhoun said, quiet but forceful. The calm at the eye of the storm. "But someone in this room is responsible." Rumors ignited instantly. Faces paled. Gabe scanned his teammates, Holly red-cheeked and blinking too fast. Owen, arms folded, staring at his shoes. After the meeting, Calhoun pulled Gabe aside. "This isn't only about lost data," he said, voice low. "Clients are already threatening to walk. Opponents are circling. The media wants blood. I need you focused. I want your eyes on every file you've worked for the past 30 days. If you even sense something off, you tell me." Gabe nodded, pulse thudding in his ears. The trust between them felt heavier now, like a secret he had to carry. By Sunday evening, sleep was a forgotten thing. Gabe combed case histories, tracked file access logs, replayed conversations from the past month, searching for gaps, for signs he'd missed. Every email felt suspect, every call a possible trap. At midnight, his phone buzzed. An anonymous message, simple as a blade. "You're next." He stared at the screen, goosebumps rising. Outside, the city throbbed with silence. Inside his apartment, Gabriel wondered, was he being warned or targeted? And could his desk? He unfolded it with trembling hands. "Please report to conference room D at 9 a.m. Partners only." By 9, the entire upper tier of Trowbridge and Fields sat around the long table. Partners, investigators, a company HR rep, and, at the far end, Andrew Calhoun himself. For a sickening moment, Gabe felt like he was on trial for something he couldn't name. Calhoun's eyes met his, unreadable. "Gabriel, have a seat." Gabe tried to steady his breathing. "Am I being accused of something?" A partner across the table, known for her ruthlessness in cross-examinations, slid a folder toward him. "You were the last to access the compromised files," she said, voice cool as glass. "Your credentials were used to export confidential documents at 1:54 a.m. Saturday morning." Gabe's mouth went dry. "That's impossible. I was asleep. Someone must have—" "Passwords are personal. Responsibility is too." Another partner snapped. Gabe looked to Calhoun, desperate, but his mentor's face was a mask, a slight frown, hands folded. "This isn't looking good, Gabriel. We have to consider the firm's reputation." Gabe's mind reeled. Was this really happening? He tried to explain, but the more he insisted, the more he denied, the less convinced anyone seemed. The evidence was damning. Logs, timestamps, messages sent from his email. He scrambled, begging for a deeper investigation, for IT to comb through access logs, for someone, anyone, to believe him. But the room had already turned cold. Before noon, he was quietly asked to surrender his badge and laptop for internal review. Security watched him pack up his things in a cardboard box, refusing to meet his gaze. By lunchtime, Gabe was standing outside the building, possessions in hand, suit sodden in the relentless rain. The story hit the business news sites by evening. Trowbridge and Fields data scandal. Senior associate under gasping. Faces of old colleagues, the clatter of the conference room chair. Calhoun's still and distant eyes. But beneath the numb ache, suspicion began to grow. Something in the official story didn't add up. The more Gabe replayed the meeting in his mind, the less sense it made. Why had they been so eager, almost rehearsed in their accusations? Why hadn't Calhoun, the man who'd defended him, so much as argued back? One night, as storm clouds brooded over Manhattan, Gabe sat at his kitchen table, a half-empty mug of coffee cooling near his elbow. He turned on his laptop, not his old work machine, but the creaky, personal one from law school, and began scrolling through anything he could find about the breach. At first he found nothing, just vague press releases and speculation. But a comment on a legal forum caught his eye. These hack stories are never what they seem. Firms cover their tracks, scapegoats get burned, so real problems vanish. Gabe's hands trembled. Was he just the necessary sacrifice? The idea wormed its way deeper as he dug. In a late-night rabbit hole of public filings and social media posts, he discovered something odd. 2 cases connected to Trowbridge and Fields had been quietly dropped in the last 48 hours. Both clients featured prominently in the data breach. Unusual, but possible. Still, the timing was too perfect. Restless, he scrolled through his phone's saved messages. There it was, the anonymous text. "You're next." He reread it dozens of times, searching for meaning. Who had sent it? A warning or a threat? He called Holly, the fellow associate who'd always shared late-evening jokes and office gossip over vending machine coffee. Her tone was wary, her words halting. "I shouldn't even be talking to you, Gabe. People are scared. The partners, they're saying things. Better to stay quiet. I'm sorry." He pressed her. Had anyone suggested what might really be going on? Was there talk about the evidence being hope stirring through the weight of betrayal? If the firm wouldn't seek the truth, then he would, and he wasn't going to stop until he found it. A thin September sun barely broke through New York's haze as Gabe set out the next day. He carried himself differently now, every muscle coiled, every sense sharp with suspicion. For the first time since his world collapsed, purpose spurred him forward. He started with Owen Richards. Tracking him down wasn't difficult. Owen's social media posts were a breadcrumb trail. Anxiety masked by bravado. Innocent selfies at after-hours bars near Midtown. Gabe waited outside a coffee shop Owen frequented, watching the crowd, until the younger man appeared, eyes bloodshot, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting trouble. "Owen." Gabe stepped from the shadows, low-voiced. Owen startled, nearly dropping his phone. "Gabe, man, I didn't—" Gabe studied him, the darting eyes, the chewed nails. "Didn't what, Owen? Didn't steal the files, or didn't think anyone would notice?" Look, I didn't do anything, I swear," Owen hissed, voice trembling. "I was at the office that night, but just for an update. IT needed someone on site. I thought you knew." "Why'd you lie to Holly? She said you'd called in maintenance, but the logs have your name on them the same hour the breach happened." Owen's expression collapsed. He shook his head, sweat beading on his brow. "They asked me not to say anything. The partners. They said it was an internal investigation. Next thing I know, you're out, and everyone's looking at me like I'm next." A surge of anger welled up inside Gabe, but reason held. He lowered his voice, pressing gently. "Owen, who else was there? Who knew what was happening that night?" Owen hesitated, gaze darting to the street. "Holly was there for a bit. So was one of the senior partners, Margot, and Calhoun. He came in late. He seemed different, quiet, kept checking his phone." His eyes flicked up. "You're not safe, Gabe. They'll pin more on you if they have to." A silent understanding You. Some power play, something big behind the scenes. "I'm sorry, Gabe. I'm so sorry." Gabe's jaw tightened, but relief mingled with his anger. He wasn't going crazy after all. "Why tell me now?" She looked away, voice barely a whisper. "Because you're the only one I trust. And because they'll ruin both of us if they find out." As the city lights flickered on beneath them, a new plan began to form in Gabe's mind. Hazardous, maybe impossible, but better than surrender. If those in power at Trowbridge and Fields wanted a fall guy, they'd chosen the wrong one. For the first time since the breach, Gabe's fear gave way to something new: defiance. He squared his shoulders against the September chill. Time to bring the truth into the light. The game changes. The city buzzed with early autumn energy, but for Gabriel, every shadow felt loaded with menace. The revelation from Holly haunted him. He replayed her voice over and over, a secret thread connecting all the chaos. As the days passed, he realized the battle was no longer just about survival. Now, he wanted justice, maybe even payback. He turned to his one remaining ace, Theo Lang, his law school friend turned cybersecurity expert. Theo greeted him outside a cramped office in Brooklyn, all quick wit and nerved-up intelligence. "You still know how to owe favors, Gabe," Theo grinned, holding the door as he ushered Gabe inside. "Let's see if your firm's IT people were as clever as they think." They spent hours hunched over Gabe's battered laptop, navigating code, tracing digital breadcrumbs. Theo found what Gabe never could: hidden footprints, he called them. Timestamps edited, access logs copied and overwritten, but with faint back doors left open by a careless hand. "Looks like someone tried to cover a massive data grab," Theo said quietly, but they got sloppy. "This isn't just an inside job. This is an orchestrated frame-up. They used your credentials, but the file movements, that pattern matches someone who knew the system, someone high up." Gabe felt relief and rage twist together. "Can you prove it?" Theo nodded, grave. "Not bulletproof, but strong, and enough to make Trowbridge and Fields think twice about going after you in the dark. Armed with the, 'You think you can fight this?' Be careful. Not everyone in this firm plays by the rules, and the fallout of your accusations might crush more than just your career." Gabe held her gaze. "All I want is the truth." She smiled, cold and thin. "The truth? In this city? Good luck, kid." Afterward, Gabe met Holly in a quiet corner booth of a half-empty diner. Outside, the city's lights glimmered. Inside, a sense of reckoning hung in the air. "Are you ready for this?" she whispered. Gabe nodded, voice steady for the first time in weeks. "I'm done running, Holly. If they want a war, I'll give them one. But we have to be smart. We need Calhoun. He knows more than he's letting on." Together they sketched a plan. Gather what evidence they could from the firm's internal network, coordinate with Theo to patch in remotely, and force Calhoun into a confrontation, one he couldn't quietly sidestep. As they parted, Holly glanced over her shoulder, her voice trembling. "Whatever happens, promise me you'll be careful." Gabe managed a real, if tired, smile. "We made it this far. Backing down isn't in my blood." He stepped into the night, the city's noise rising around him. A storm he finally felt ready to face. The game had changed. And this time, Gabe was determined to play by his own rules. The trap is set. By sunrise, Gabriel's resolve had hardened to steel. He moved through the city with purpose, the weight of fear transformed into focus. Every step was a choice. No more hiding. It was time to force the truth into the open. He spent the morning at Theo's cramped office, coordinating the next steps. Theo's fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code tumbling like falling rain. "We're in," he murmured, eyes fixed on the screen. "I've got a secure connection into their archives. We need something indisputable, something they can't spin." Gabe nodded. He'd already memorized the route. The files to target, the emails he suspected, the internal memos that, if uncovered, would drive and set up a burner email account to send the files to the reporter. As the files uploaded, Gabe braced for what came next. By late afternoon, Gabe and Holly met in a quiet West Village park. She listened as he described the evidence, her expression shifting from relief to fierce determination. "Now what?" she whispered. Gabe's eyes narrowed. "We make them face us. Tonight, at the firm's boardroom. They'll want to control the story, but we're going to wrest it away." He handed Holly a backup drive just in case. "You keep this safe. If anything happens, get it to the press." The scene at Trowbridge and Fields was a tableau of corporate power. Margot presided at the boardroom's head. Calhoun sat beside her, flanked by nervous partners. Gabe entered with Holly at his side, their presence drawing sharp, uncertain gazes. Margot's voice was icy. "You're not supposed to be here." Gabe squared his shoulders. "I have information you'll want to see. Information already in the hands of the press, if anything happens to me. Or to Holly." Calhoun's mask threatened to crack. "I'd be careful with threats, Gabriel." "Not a threat," Gabe replied. He placed the USB on the table. "A promise. The files show everything. The planted evidence, the false logs, the plan to destroy me. You used me to protect yourselves." The boardroom shifted. Someone gasped. For once, Margot seemed at a loss. She tried to recover. "This will destroy the firm's reputation." Gabe's jaw tightened. "Not as much as letting people like you keep running it." The doors opened. 2 uniformed security guards entered behind them, summoned by Calhoun but now uncertain, unsure which side of the line they should stand on. "I've already sent this to the Journal," Gabe continued. "By tomorrow, everyone will know what you did. If you want to salvage anything, you'll start by coming clean." For a long moment, time hung suspended. Calhoun's features crumbled. He looked not angry now, but exhausted, a man undone by the weight of his own power plays. Margot finally stood. The world reeled from the scandal at Trowbridge and Fields. The fallout was swift. Margot and Calhoun were both suspended, pending a broader investigation. The IT chief vanished from the city, leaving unanswered questions and a flurry of subpoenas in his wake. Within a week, national outlets picked up the story, and clients fled. The grand marble foyer of Trowbridge and Fields, once bustling, intimidating, was silent. Gabe felt the world slow down for the first time in years. His name, once tied to betrayal, now edged into redemption. Journalists camped outside his building, some seeking comment, others apology. Gabe and Holly agreed to stay quiet, letting the truth unfold on its own terms. For her, the relief was mixed with exhaustion. Trust came hard, even in victory. Theo, ever the cynic, raised a toast over greasy takeout one night. To surviving the meat grinder. Not many get to walk out with their skin intact. He winked, but beneath the bravado, Gabe could see the pride. As days bled into weeks, offers trickled in. Consulting gigs, speeches, even a book proposal. But Gabe turned them away, for now. He spent time with his mother, answering her questions honestly, comforting her anxieties with gentle truths. He helped Holly find a role at a rival firm, somewhere she could rebuild out of the shadows. Together, they went for long walks in Central Park, learning how to talk about the future again. In quiet moments, Gabe wondered who he was after it all. Not the naive, hungry associate, not the scapegoat. The world's anger had faded, replaced by tentative respect. But healing was slower. Trust, self-belief, hope. These things took time. One Friday evening, Holly joined Gabe on his rooftop. The city flickered at their feet. She nudged him. "So, what next?" He smiled, a real one this time. "Whatever we want." A breeze rattled the fire escapes. "We could open our own firm," she said, half joking, but only half. "Maybe," Gabe replied. He hesitated at his kitchen table, then opened it. "Gabriel, some things can't be fixed by lawyers or headlines. I'm sorry for my part in what happened. I'd convinced myself I was protecting the firm, never seeing who I was sacrificing. If you ever want the full truth, I owe you that much. J. Calhoun." Gabe read the note twice, unsure if it brought closure or just another layer of regret. For a long time he stared out at the city, weighing the offer. Then, quietly, he slid the letter into a drawer. Some questions could wait. Later, that day, he met Holly at a bustling cafe in the West Village. She'd flourished in her new job, her confidence a little brighter each day. They sipped coffee, talking about everything and nothing. "I keep thinking about starting over," Holly admitted, her voice soft. "Maybe somewhere warm, a fresh coast, or maybe right here, just new." "You're not the only one," Gabe replied. His eyes drifted around the bright room, imagining what might come next. Clients who needed defending, stories waiting to be told, a business built on hard-won principles. Theo dropped in, dropping old jokes and sly advice. "The world doesn't give out medals for surviving, you know. So get out there and build something you actually want." He raised his mug. "To friends who stick and cities that keep secrets." As the laughter faded and conversation grew thoughtful, Gabe realized something had settled inside him. Not resentment, but a kind of peace. He could forgive Calhoun, eventually. He could even forgive the city, relentless and beautiful, that had shaped him through fire. Most of all, he could forgive himself for the mistakes of the past. That evening, Gabe stopped by his old apartment, the one he'd nearly lost. Boxes sat packed by the door. Tonight, he wasn't leaving in defeat. Instead, he slid his resume into a blue folder marked with a single word: begin. On the fire escape, watching the city turn gold in the setting sun, Gabe breathed deeply. He had learned hard lessons about power, about trust, and about the value of starting over. The slate would never be fully would sabotage his second act. But he quickly learned that hardship bred empathy. People trusted him for the battle scars he didn't bother hiding. Holly became a constant in his life, not as co-conspirator, but as friend, sometimes more, always grounding. She liked to tease that they both needed reboots, and so they built new habits together. Saturday markets in Union Square, impromptu jazz shows in hidden clubs, legal strategy sessions that doubled as therapy. Both had been burned, but neither wilted. One rainy afternoon, as the city grumbled in gray, Gabe slipped into the coffee shop where he'd first suspected his world was unraveling. This time it was warm, almost cozy. Faces looked familiar, and the barista greeted him by name. His phone buzzed, an email from the city's bar association. They wanted him for a public ethics panel. "Your story has helped inspire positive change in the legal community. Would you share it with others?" He let out a laugh, amazed at the turn. The days when he'd been the cautionary tale were gone. He was, improbably, a survivor worth listening to. Later that week, he met Holly at the High Line, an echo of where fears and truths once collided. The air was brisk with the promise of spring. "Ever wonder what we'd be doing right now if none of it happened?" she asked, kicking at a pebble. Gabe smiled thoughtfully. Probably chasing the next rung of a ladder that didn't mean much. She studied him, tone softening. And now? He shrugged. Now I actually look forward to tomorrow. They walked quietly, side by side, both changed by fire but no longer defined by it. On the horizon, the city gathered itself for night, radiant and unfinished. Gabe understood there was no final victory, only moments, choices, and the slow work of becoming something more. He didn't need revenge or even vindication anymore. He needed only the chance to keep going, and perhaps to help others do the same. The rest of his life waited, unwritten and bright, as the city itself.